At one point, we were all afraid of what was under our bed, in our closet, but all or majority of us usually get over it as we get older. But there are nights when our bodies get goosebumps, and that same fear comes again, that dreaded feeling of something hiding underneath the bed or in the closet. All because we know that there are things in this world that we can't explain, and stories that truly scare us. Today we'll be looking at a few stories that are hard to comprehend, but will give you goosebumps. This video will mark the start of the Monster series. If you like this type of content and wish to see more, subscribe and like. Bauman and his partner were beaver trappers who had set up camp and built a lean-to near Montana's Wisdom River. Leaving their bags behind, they went to set traps, returning as night fell. But when they came back, they found something had torn down their shelter and emptied their packs. Bowman assumed it had been a bear, but his partner was uneasy. Using a torch, he carefully inspected the tracks. Bowman, his partner, said, "That bear has been walking on 2 legs." That night, as the two slept in a newly built lean-to, Bauman awoke to see a giant standing in the opening. He panicked and shot the intruder, which then took off into the forest. For the rest of the night, the two men sat by the fire, cradling their guns, watching the trees. The creature returned the next day, wrecking their campsite again while they were trapping. And that night, the men heard the beast howling in the woods. When the sun rose, Bauman and his friends decided it was time to pack up and go. But first, they had to collect their traps. They made the all-time classic mistake. They split up. Bauman went to the river while his partner stayed to pack their gear. When Bauman returned to the camp, he noticed their fire had gone out. All their belongings were packed, but where was his partner? Bauman called for him, but there was no answer. And then he saw the body. His partner was sprawled on the ground, his neck broken, his throat covered with puncture wounds, and there were giant footprints everywhere. Terrified, Bauman took off running through the forest, leaving behind everything except his gun. So what was this creature? Bauman believed it was a goblin. What do you guys think? Do you think it's a goblin? Well, according to the story, what I thought was, it's an animal that walks on 2 legs, howls at the moon, it screams werewolf. I mean, that's why the bullet didn't work on it. He needed silver. Let me know down below what you guys think about this. Officer Samaniego was patrolling the streets of Guadalupe, Mexico on January 16, 2004, when he noticed something jump down from a nearby tree. Curious, Samaniego flicked on his bright lights to get a better look, and saw a woman clad in a black cape, cloak, and pointy hat. This witchy woman had solid black eyes with no irises, no eyelids, and most importantly, her feet weren't touching the ground. Without warning, the bruja, Spanish for witch, soared toward the car, landing on the hood and glaring at Samaniego with her soulless eyes. As the terrified officer threw his car in reverse, the witch pounded on the windshield, trying to break through and grabbed Samaniego. Samaniego radioed for backup, but suddenly hit a wall, knocking himself unconscious. Samaniego awoke inside an ambulance and was tested for drugs and alcohol, both of which turned up negative. He passed all psychological tests, and he had never had hallucinations before. When reporters arrived, the frightened officer stuck to his story. After his story was published, hundreds of people reported seeing a woman flying across the sky. If it was just one person, we can say that it was just in their imagination, but when mass amounts of people come out and say that they saw something, it's very surprising. On March 24, 1962, Edward Brian McCleary and his 4 friends decided to check out the USS Massachusetts. The ship had been sunk by the Navy after it was decommissioned off of the coast of Pensacola, Florida, and the boys thought it would be the perfect place to scuba dive. As the boys sailed towards the battleship in a rubber raft, they hit a fierce storm. After being tossed around by strong winds, they found themselves lost in the fog. As the sun went down the horizon, the boys heard something splashing nearby. It was then they smelled the stench of rot and heard something hissing. Edward claims he then saw something like a 3-meter pole or a very long neck coming straight at them. Panicking, the teens ditched their raft and swam for the battleship. As they paddled, Edward saw the monster pull Eric Rule under the water. They then heard Warren Sally shout, "It's got Brad." A few moments later, Sally screamed in pain, and Larry Bill vanished into the fog. Edward swam to the shore, where he was discovered by a rescue crew. 3 years later, he sold his story to the magazine and sketched an image of the beast that supposedly killed his friends. The illustration bears a striking resemblance to a Plesiosaurus. But is there any truth to Edward's tale? I'll let you all be the judge of that. These stories were quite scary, and I want to know what you guys think about them. Do you believe some of them? Do you think that some of them were lying or embellishing the story because of fear? Let me know down below. Once again, be careful, be safe, be aware.